What's up, guys?
What's up, guys?
What's up, guys? So, Beauty and the Beast,
Kong Skull Island,
Logan,
Episode 8, Last Jedi teaser
best
trailer.
love letters to Hollywood that we've
This
ever
film
seen.
is a masterpiece. So, until the next time, goodbye.
A Wrinkle in Time is directed by Ava DuVernay, and this is a film that I was anticipating for a few reasons. One, because it's a new fantasy film that's not part of any pre-established series or anything. It's a massive $100 million adaptation of a classic novel that was once thought unfilmable, and I thought the trailers looked pretty cool, and so I was pretty excited going into it. It's the first film over $100 million to be directed by an African-American woman, and Ava DuVernay has made films like Selma, which is a great film, and so I was just very interested to see what she could bring to the fantasy genre. It tells the story of Meg, a young middle schooler whose father was a scientist, but he goes missing. He's played by Chris Pine, and he was studying tesseracts, or travelling to different dimensions without the use of extensive travel. He thought that you could travel from dimension to dimension simply using your mind. So one day he goes missing, and then it cuts to a few years later, and it shows the aftermath of what his disappearance has done to Meg. And so one day, mysteriously, these three supernatural beings, played by Oprah Winfrey, Mindy Kaling, and Reese Witherspoon, appear, and they take Meg on this fantasy adventure with her younger brother and her friend from school. And yeah, we have a new fantasy adventure that has had a pretty mixed reaction, actually. It's got something like a 4.2 on IMDb, and the first thing I'm going to say is that it really doesn't deserve such low ratings. I actually found myself enjoying this film a lot more than I thought I would. First off, Storm Reid is excellent as Meg. Apart from one or two shaky lines, she really sells the character. And one of the best parts of her character, I thought, was how in the very beginning of the film, she's a very shy and reserved character. She's still got a lot of learning to do about herself. And that's basically the main message of this film. It's coming to terms with who you are as a person, learning your identity, and really accepting and embracing who you are. And her transition from who she is in the beginning to how she eventually comes out of her shell and becomes the person she is by the end of the film, I thought that Storm Reid does a great job of conveying that. Chris Pine as well, I just want to say that every scene he's in, he just brings something extra to it. A little bit of that movie style gravitas to every scene he's in. I'll talk more about the three supernatural beings a bit later on, and also her younger brother. But right now, I want to talk about the visuals, because they are really what sells this film. Some of the fantasy places that they go to, some of the combinations of special effects and practical real locations are just seamless, and it was gorgeous to look at. I saw this film in 3D, and if you're going to see it, I would recommend seeing it in 3D. It doesn't distract you from anything, it really enhances the viewing experience. Even when the story is lacking, it's the visuals that really support the film. Only two moments of CGI didn't work for me. One was when Reese Witherspoon turns into this giant flying tree thing, and there are a ton of close-ups on her tree face. That didn't really work for me. Also, at one point, Oprah's character can't really figure out how to fix her size to make it adjust to the proportions of the real world. So we have this huge giant Oprah Winfrey, and when it's close up on her, it's fine because you don't really notice it. But when it's a wide shot and you just see her standing in the background and she's this massive CGI Oprah, it was just really unintentionally funny. But apart from those two CGI moments, I thought that the visuals were great, and the blend of CGI and real locations was seamless and pretty gorgeous to look at. The visual style is what really sets this film apart from other films of its genre, and there are a couple of standout scenes visually that I really won't forget from this film. The film isn't exactly subtle in its message. It does sort of ram it down your throat that, you know, you need to be yourself. Pretty much every line that Oprah says to Meg is all about, you know, accept who you are. You got to learn on this journey who you are. The whole point of this journey is to discover who you are, and actually when you embrace who you are, that's only when you can succeed. So I thought it was a good message, even if it was a bit heavy-handed. I liked the fact that the film stuck to it, and pretty much it kept a consistent tone throughout the film, and its message was consistent throughout the film, and that's something that I really appreciated. Next, I want to talk about one standout scene, and I actually would call this scene brilliant. It's when Oprah Winfrey is talking to all the characters, and she's basically explaining what the main threat is and how it manifests itself and affects all the main characters. And immediately you understand what this threat is, and you again immediately feel for all these characters. It just adds an extra element to every single character. It adds layers, it adds motivation and depth to all of the main characters that Oprah talks to. And just in that one 30-second to a minute scene, immediately you could see why everyone's doing the things that they do, and I thought that scene was actually quite brilliant. From the beginning of the film and from the transformation that the Disney logo goes through, I was into it. The first act I really enjoyed, seeing how Meg is in school and then setting up the adventure. I would say the second act is a bit aimless, it sort of takes a while to find its footing, and the third act, I liked it, but I thought it was a bit rushed. The ending especially is a bit rushed. They sort of throw everything together, throw all the messages that they can, and they wrap it up a bit too quickly. I wanted a bit more payoff at the end. But in that third act, I think the best visual scenes, the ones that I remember, they're definitely present there. Now I'm going to talk about the three Mrs. characters. These are the three supernatural beings played by Oprah, Reese Witherspoon, and Mindy Kaling. They felt a bit more like sketches. I wanted a bit more depth because these are three great actresses, and they can definitely do more with these characters, but they basically had like one or two quirks to their characters, and they were like exposition people. They sort of explained the plot. They said obvious plot points. They were like, this is the beginning of the journey, this is no longer a search, it's a rescue mission, and stuff like that. They sort of stated the obvious, and they explained lots of things, and I wanted a bit more from them. But they were always entertaining, and when they were off screen, I sort of wished that they were back. But I did want a bit more, especially with these three actresses on board, from those three characters. Zach Galifianakis has a cameo, not really a cameo, he has like one scene. He was always fun to watch. There are actually a couple of funny one-liners. It keeps a pretty consistent tone of this sort of joyful optimism, and there are some moments of good humour that I actually found quite funny. And then by the end of the film, I really felt like I'd experienced something. And that's the thing that I judge most adventure fantasy films on, is that by the end of the film, have I felt like I've lived through something with these characters? And by the end of A Wrinkle of Time, I really felt like I had. The minor flaws that I have with the film are the story problems, its sort of aimlessness, a couple of lines that didn't really work, and the ending I felt was a bit rushed. But the main problem I would say with this film, it doesn't ruin the film at all, is the actor playing Meg's younger brother, Charles Wallace. I really don't want to trash this kid, but just the majority of his line readings were a bit shaky, and I think they definitely could have found a different actor. This is his first film role, I think, so he does a decent job in some scenes, but I definitely think that he could have either been replaced by a better actor or done a bit better with his line delivery, especially in the third act. A lot is asked for him, and I would say he is definitely the weakest link in the film. But again, that's the only major flaw that I have with the film. Obviously, it's not perfect, it has flaws that I've said, but overall, I really found myself enjoying A Wrinkle of Time more than I thought I would. It's got great visuals, some great performances, especially from Storm Reid and Chris Pine, some standout visual moments, like I said, some moments of humour. Zach Galifianakis I always found entertaining, and yeah, I just enjoyed it much more than I thought I would. It's an above average fantasy adventure, and it's going to connect with some people and not connect with other people. Obviously, it hasn't connected with the majority of people, judged by the reviews from people that it's getting, but it resonated with me more than I thought I would. I'm going to give A Wrinkle in Time a B. So those are my thoughts on A Wrinkle in Time. I'm currently in the middle of my exam, so I haven't been seeing any films recently. I'm hoping to see Tomb Raider, Pacific Rim Uprising, and hopefully Ready Player One, all before I leave for England. I leave for England next Thursday, so by the end of my exams, I want to have seen those three films, and I'll get reviews for those films with you shortly. So those are my thoughts on A Wrinkle in Time. If you guys have seen it, what do you think? Like, comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do, and until the next time, goodbye.